This episode is brought to you by Sable International, building futures beyond borders.
But I just wanted to make a day of it, like a real day of it, where everyone can come out, have a good day, stuff for kids to do, and just celebrate being South African for a day.
Welcome to the Relocated South African. Some people relocate and they keep their heads down. My next guest relocated and then created a reason for every South African in Ireland to come out of hiding. She's the woman behind the South African Gathering, one of Ireland's most loved South African community events. She's also a finance professional who's built an impressive career on her new home turf. Berilyn Teeling, great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Jan. Great to be here.
Awesome. So, Berilyn, let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up in South Africa and study and so forth?
I grew up mainly in Johannesburg, in Observatory. We started off in Kensington, but then moved to Obs, and I went to Sacred Heart College, Marist Brothers. Finished there in 1988. I have 4 younger brothers, so it was a very busy house. Lots happening, lots of sports, school activities. So yeah, I was the eldest of the 5. My youngest brother was a real Larklamaki. He's 16 years younger than me, so there was a whole range of them in between. And yeah, 1988 finished school, and just after that, my dad passed away in a car accident. He was a journalist with the Citizen, and so that also changed, I think, where we all thought we were going at that stage. So the boys were still at school, and I went to Paraguay as an exchange student for a year, literally a month or 2 after he passed, because that had already been arranged. You know, you go through all the interviews and all that kind of thing beforehand. Host family set up. So off I went. It was a big decision. Do I go? Don't I go? But I turned down a place that fits. So what was I going to do? Anyway, so I went off, landed in a small little village in Paraguay where no one spoke English and I didn't speak Spanish. So that was a very steep learning curve. Had to learn the lingo pretty quickly. And yeah, then came back, was at Wits, did social work degree, and husband in the mid-90s, literally just before the 95 World Cup. And his family is originally from Dublin. They left Ireland in the 60s. His dad was a printer, and they went to South Africa. They had 5 boys at the time. There are now 9 of them. So it was a very big family. And so
Typical
they've always, 100%.
Irish family.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been backwards and forwards for decades. You know, a lot of them grew up in South Africa, but there's that Irish heritage. You know, they lived in Sunrid Park in Boksburg, and you'd walk into the house and there'd just be Irish music playing. You know, you were so it's kind of a weird one, because if you think about a lot of South Africans when they're away, it's the same thing. You walk into a home, like here we have South African music playing, or half-out stereo on the radio, that kind of thing. Anyway, so that was one of the reasons we initially came out in the 90s. We were very young, didn't really have much going on, and we were here for 3 years doing all sorts of odd jobs, motorbike couriering and, you know, all that kind of thing. We were here for 3 years and went back 2000. We were homesick and, went back, sort of had to resettle in again, back in Joburg. So it was renting initially, and then we bought a house and had my son 2004. And he, you know, and we were settled, carrying on. You know, you get stuck in your ruts, and kids go to school and you go to work and that kind of thing. And I don't know if it's just that we're restless, or things were just plodding along, really. I think we were looking for a way to change our situation. So we put the house on the market 2009, and nothing happened. So we took
just after the crash.
Yeah. So we left it for a year. initially looking at Oz and that kind of thing, but we left it. And beginning of 2010, put it back on the market. It sold in 2 weeks. And we were actually going to move to Durban and decided why are we doing that? We've almost felt like we were moving with our problem as such. So we decided to give Ireland another go. And 3 weeks later, the house was gone. We sold all our furniture, sold everything, knives, forks, cups, plates, everything. And got on a plane with my son, who was 5 at the time, and 3 suitcases, and off we went. And
wow, that is so brave. Tell Berilyn, just back to Paraguay.
Yes.
Did that trip, how long was it? A year?
A year, yeah.
Do you think that changed how you thought about living abroad and living in South Africa, or did it not really impact on you?
Not really living in South Africa as such. I mean, I was just 18. So, and I think very naive in a way. You know, we didn't really have anything to worry about growing. You know, you went to school, you played sport and that kind of thing. And there weren't all it didn't feel like all the big, bad, scary things that you worry about nowadays. You know, it was a very innocent upbringing, I think. So when I got over there, it was a huge eye-opener for me, because now I was on my own. You know, if I needed to phone home, I had to go to the phone company, and you stood in this little box and you got a little silver like coin thing, and you had to put it in, and then I would phone her and say, "Hi, Mom," when I knew everyone there was listening to the phone call as well, you know. So, yeah. But it was, I think I grew up a lot because I had to. There was no one there to save me or rescue me or help me. You know, I had to get on with it. So, yeah. And when I came back, I was a little bit, I think my mom wanted the old version of me back because I was a little bit more free and carefree and enjoyed a beer and, you know, that kind of thing, where before I didn't really, because it was, you know, being the only girl, I think they were stricter than with the boys in a way. So, and I think with the South Africa's perspective of it, growing up late 80s, Sacred Heart was one of the first multiracial schools. Okay. So there was a lot of drama, 87, 88, you know, there was a lot of things going on, and I tended to be more of a stand up and speak out for what's right, basically, you know. So that's carried on for a while. Yeah.
But I mean, it's quite interesting with Irish family, having been to Ireland before. The decision, in a way, I guess, was brave, but also on the other hand, an easier decision than hopping on a plane and going to Oz.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the previous Irish experience and the kind of family connection probably made for a softer landing than somebody who arrives, you know, without knowing anyone there.
The first time we were there, you know, the hard thing about it is that my husband, who's Robbie, had family, but they'd been gone for so long. I mean, we were always known as the Africans, even Robbie, you know, we're the Africans. Didn't matter how long we'd been there, didn't matter what we did or anything. So we were Africans, and but yes, definitely, we were really poor. We had no money and scraping by, and anyway, you know, it builds character, as they say. So, but for example, his cousins, we'd go around every Sunday for lunch. So we'd have a really good cooked roast lunch, and she'd pack a bag with some potatoes and rice and things, you know, to get us through the next week, and bus fare. So we didn't have to walk 15 kilometers home. But it wasn't like it was a hardship in a way. You know, you just got on with it. And you didn't have other things to worry about because, you know, you could walk from wherever to wherever without, you know, those kinds of worries.
Yeah. No, it's It's very true. But so when you went the second time, did you move straight to Wicklow?
We basically did. We had booked a B&B for 2 weeks because we didn't really know where we were going to end up. But we knew and had heard that if the sun was going to shine, it was going to shine on the southeast coast. So we targeted that area, and the Garden of Ireland is Wicklow. So we hired a car and literally we drove around from town to town every day. We choose a different place, and for some reason, when we drove into Wicklow town, we just felt like it was the place we wanted to be. But obviously when we arrived here the second time, it was just after, it was in the middle of a recession. Yes. So I remember getting picked up from the port to go to our B&B because we spent a few days in London before we came over. And the taxi driver, so I won't repeat the exact language, but he said to us, like, what are you doing here? You should be leaving, not arriving, Yeah. So anyway, so we got to Wicklow and there wasn't actually much accommodation to rent or whatever. We popped into a few estate agents and we came across a woman who was involved with the Wicklow Rugby Club. And Robbie coached rugby for a while and had played rugby up until mid-30s, like club rugby, etc. So there's always that. I think rugby tends to, a lot of the time, be a little bit of a connection, right? Yeah. So she phoned someone she knew who had an empty house and asked him if he wouldn't mind renting it to us. And we literally moved in within a week and had my son enrolled in school and off we went. So, yeah.
And that was without work?
No work. Yeah, we had the money from the house that we had. And yeah, it took a while. It took a while to find work. And my husband's an artist, so he works from home, but he had a huge shift because he's mainly a wildlife artist. And generally in Ireland, people are not buying paintings of cheetah and leopards, so there was a shift there, obviously, which is fine. I mean, he's pretty adaptable art-wise. So, yeah, and we just got stuck in. I think you got to hit the ground running. You have to.
You can't look back. And today is he doing more sort of landscapes of the Irish?
He does all sorts of things. He initially joined the Kilmanton Art Gallery, which is a little gallery in Wicklow town, and it's a community gallery. So how they work it is you have all your artist members. They pay a rent monthly. They all have to do, let's say, 2 shifts a year. And that rent and a small commission pays the bills. So it's run by artists, for artists.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, him and I are both on the committee there. So it's run by a small committee, and so yes, he paints landscapes and all sorts of other things. He has sold a fair amount of wildlife art actually, because there are a lot of people who've been to South Africa and experience that side of things. But definitely a lot of cows and robins and mystical mountains and things. So yeah.
Awesome. And yourself to find work, how difficult was that at that time?
It was difficult. I think it probably took me 4 to 5 months. So we burned through the money that we brought with us pretty quickly, obviously, but it was part of the plan. So I wasn't too keen on having to go all the way to Dublin, but if necessary, then, that's what, but I was lucky enough to find work for an IT recruitment company in Wicklow town at the time. I was going from door to door with CVs and saying, hi, this is me. Here's my CV. If you have any work, because I think Ireland, that's how it works. In fact, majority of the time, it's not what you know. Well, yes, a percentage of it is, but a lot of it is speaking to people, letting people know this is what I need. I need a house to live in, or if you hear of such and such. So, yeah, and I've been with them since beginning of 2011. I've worked.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, managing.
Do you think? I mean, that's quite an interesting thing. We always talk about South Africans being quite proud, and like when you immigrate, you kind of have to bury that high horse and get off it and, go stand at the door and ask. And
Yeah.
I sometimes just get the impression that it's in our culture. It's pretty difficult to do that. So that must have been a bit of a shock for you.
It was a bit of a shock. Yeah, it definitely was a bit of a shock. But I think when you're in a situation where you've got to get it done, you have a choice to not do anything, but that's not going to end well. So you have to knock on the doors and sometimes fake it till you make it, basically,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because the downside, if it doesn't work, and when do you decide it doesn't work, and then you have to go back, and the cost of that is massive. Then you have to restart again,
I know.
as you kind of know. So that's well done.
Yeah.
I mean, just frostbite.
Yeah, you have to.
I assume you guys have Irish passports.
Well, going back to coming here, yet one of the reasons why, in a way, Ireland was an easier option was Robbie and Reese, my son, both had Irish passports. So I was the one with the green number, and by 2015 I had applied and got my citizenship. So we all now have Irish passports.
Yeah. It's become a little bit more difficult now for
extremely
the
difficult
groen mamba
Yeah.
to just pop up and get work. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, I'm not. We talked about the weather. You said where the sun shines. That apparently that's one Wednesday in August, according to my daughter.
Yes.
But jokes aside, was the weather a bit of a shock? Did you guys find it difficult?
I think initially we didn't really. I mean, it was when you first, well, for us anyway, when you first arrive, everything's new. So it's not like you thinking, oh God, you're enjoying it because we got out all the time. We went to go, we explored, we did walks, we did driving down little roads where we didn't know we were going to end up. And we got here in 2010, and that December, they had that snow that was, we haven't seen since. I think it snowed for 4 days. Airports closed down. You couldn't travel. And my mother happened to visit us 2 days before it started snowing. And she was on a very short trip. And I went back with her on the train to Dublin to get her back on a plane. And she was at the airport for 4 days. So that was quite something. And we flew out to Boston to see one of my brothers on the 23rd of December. And we were delayed overnight. I hadn't seen him in 5 or 6 years. And I was really upset because I was like, we've planned this whole thing. And we managed to get out, got to Boston, and they had the worst blizzard in 30 years. And we were snowed literally into the house. So it was exciting for us at the time because we'd never seen anything like that, all that snow, just snow everywhere. But as you go on, for example, this last winter, the rain it just rained for months, basically. And it does get you down. It really does, because there's no break. There's no let up. It's just a constant. So it can be a lot. But, in a way, I enjoy being at home, doing bits and pieces, doing what I'm doing, and we enjoy the house, we enjoy our space. So, yeah, I think if you think about it too much, you can drive yourself crazy.
I think, people adapt, and the culture is so different that it's okay for everybody to go to a pub, and just meet people there and not be so dependent on being outside in your garden like we used to. So I think it's the lifestyle, and you get used to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the South African gathering. This sounds like something really remarkable. Where did the idea come from? You want to tell us a story?
Yeah. So I think it was long before. We started it in 2018, and a good few years before that, I'd been speaking about it because there were a good few get-togethers in different parts of the country where people would get together, and there'd be boerie rolls and a bit of music, and people travel from all over. just to have that day where there's a bit of connection, even though you might not even end up speaking to anyone, you know what I mean, or meeting anyone, but you just all South Africans. But I just wanted to make a day of it, like a real day of it, where everyone can come out, have a good day, stuff for kids to do, and just celebrate being South African for a day. Because I think what happens a lot of the time is there's a lot of talk about you need to integrate. For example, in Ireland, you need to integrate into the community and into whatever. And sometimes people will say it's almost like you feel like you've got to leave your South Africanness behind. And for me, anyway, I don't agree with that. And look, each to his own, most definitely. But I think proudly South African all the way, and we celebrate it when we can. Obviously, I'm not going into work waving South African flags, except obviously when the Springboks play. We do. I do Book Friday, irrespective of where I am. But so yes, you do need to integrate it and that kind of thing. Anyway, back to South African gathering. I was doing a bit of bookkeeping for a woman who owned a farm in Wicklow, and playing this over my head. And she had the space on the farm, so I approached her, and she had a big barn. That was important because if it rains, what do we do? So she was umming and ahhing. Her and her husband weren't too sure about the whole thing, but they said, yeah, we'll give it a bash. We had no money to organize this event. We spent 3 weekends cleaning the barn out so that we could use it for market stalls or whoever was selling whatever, and created a small little website and put some tickets out for sale. I think they were €10 or €5 or something. And we had about 200 tickets booked. And we thought, we haven't really outlaid much. We'd hired a bouncy castle, and there was a South African guy, Robbie Taylor, who was a one-man band, and he was going to sing on the day. So we said, well, go ahead. But that June, it's actually exactly this weekend, 2018. It was a June bank holiday weekend, and over 1,000 people arrived. It was like 25 degrees that day. So everybody was holding out, let's see what the weather's going to do. And it was manic. It was crazy. We had one food vendor selling samosas and curry, who obviously ran out at 12 o'clock in the day. People were going down to get rolls and takeaways from the garage down the road. It was just a crazy, crazy day. It was a crazy day, but hopefully everyone had a good time. I was just running from one end to the next, but and that was the start of it. And slowly, every year we try and improve. Most of the time we generally have relied on the tickets we sell is what pays for the day. So, that's how we work, and have always worked, because I suppose in Ireland it's a bit difficult trying to get someone to buy into a South African gathering. But, to me, why wouldn't you? We've got thousands of South Africans who need homes to live in, cars to drive, groceries to buy. Yeah.
And so, it was your initiative. Do you still run the whole thing yourself?
Yeah. Myself and my husband, yeah.
Oh, wow. And doing that while you're working, it must be quite a job.
It is quite a job. But I can't not do it. It's the kind of thing, like last year was a great day. But it was just so stressful. And we were sort of, we're not going to do it again next year. And come January, I'm like, well, sorry, Rob, but I can't not do it. It's a great day. And, yeah.
That's amazing. And in terms of people that attend now, how many do you get?
Well,
now?
Look, it can vary. And I mean, we probably between 1,500 to 2,000, depending on the day, depending on the weather. Yeah.
That is amazing. And you saying stalls and so on, so you open it to people to come and sell T-shirts and food and whatever.
And I try, and not that we don't want anything Irish, but for small South African businesses. People, as you say, making Cook Sisters, Malta, groceries, biltong durvos, whatever. They have a market stall, and it's a great way for them to be seen by other South Africans. If going forward you want to know where to buy milk tarts in future or rusks or whatever, you're supporting a small business. So yeah.
That is amazing. And do you, you obviously have a website and it's on Facebook and so on.
Yeah.
The
We're
South
all over
African
the
Gather.
place. Yeah.
We'll put
TikTok
it in
and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And is it the same venue still?
We hopped around a bit initially because our main problem is most places will not let you light a fire.
Of course.
And we can't have a gathering where you can't light a fire, right? So that's impossible. So we have found the place that we're at, Ballykilcavern, is a lovely, I think it's 300 years old. It's a huge property and old farm buildings. And the guy who owns this family farm, he started a brewery a few years ago to help with the upkeep of the place. And he grows his own barley and whatever, makes his own beers. And lovely, lovely man. David Chemist Walsh is his name. And so it's our 4th year with him. And he's an absolute pleasure to deal with.
Oh, awesome. And he sells beer at the function.
Yes, so he's our beer supplier. The brewery's just behind the wall where the bar is. So we have an endless supply of beer for the day, which is fab.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know the Lacquer Network was in Ireland. Were you at that function?
Yes, I was. I was at the launch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the launch. And then Freedom Day as well. Yeah.
Okay. You remember then?
I haven't become a member yet.
Oh, you haven't joined them?
No.
Okay. Okay.
That is on the cards.
It's just amazing. I know my daughter and them, they probably have more South African friends in Ireland than they had in South Africa.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But they always go to these concerts and they say, there's 1,000 K-wear jackets and
yeah, that's a dead giveaway, isn't it? It's so funny.
With Bok van Blerk and those guys there.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But that's awesome. It's great that people retain their South Africanness. And I mean, that was the question. It's kind of obvious if you're doing what you're doing, but have you ever felt Irish now that you live there?
It's kind of weird. Sometimes, when you're carrying on, you're at work, you're on the phone, I sometimes forget that I sound different until someone says to me, where are you from? Australia. I'm like, no, you're not allowed to say that. I'm not from Australia. I'm South African. But it's kind of a weird one, and I think a few people have said it, driving down the highway and you look around and you could almost be anywhere. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I necessarily feel Irish. I just feel, I don't know if it's settled or at home. Yeah, definitely. I do feel at home.
I said that exactly as well in December when we arrived back in Lisbon. I said to my wife, it's kind of strange, but now I feel like I've arrived home.
Yeah.
And from another country. But I guess that's the only way to look at it. We'll never not be South African, but we are now living somewhere else. And I think that's actually amazing. And family-wise, do you still have a lot of family in South Africa?
My mom is in Johannesburg. She's about to move to the Cape. Which is great because I've got her mom, my gran, and her 2 sisters are still in the Cape. So she'll have that backup because she's been in Johannesburg on her own for a while. Because my 4 brothers we've been all over the place for so long. I've got a brother in Oz, 1 in Boston, and then 2 moved over in the last between 3 and 6 years, who are here just down the road from me, which is great, to have some family here. But and on my in-law side, my mom-in-law is still in Ballito. Never wanted to come back to Ireland, and a few of my brother-in-laws and their wives, etc., are still in South Africa. So not too much, but there's still family there. Yeah.
But you mentioned this care, because that's something that comes up in every conversation, is having older parents and people that need care and their needs get greater and so on. And sitting overseas, always a problem if something goes wrong and you can't just hop on a plane and be there,
Exactly.
That's the difference that I say with immigration from South Africa versus other countries within Europe, because you're close, it's even for us from Ireland, it's a 2.5 hour flight. So it's not far, but the problem with South Africa being so far, it really puts strain on people, and it's okay when everything is going swimmingly, but when the wheels come off, it can be very tough.
Well, that's it. And I think as it gets more and more expensive to fly, and it just seems to be harder. I don't know, unless it's just as we get older, it seems harder. When you were younger, you hopped on a plane and it was great and off you went. And now it just seems like, how are we going to get through this,
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And how often do you guys still go back?
Look, we try to go back as often as we can, but obviously, just depending on cost and that kind of thing, that plays a factor, definitely. But I think we were back last February, so 25 February. And we definitely can't go back unless we have to go to the Kruger for a few days. Otherwise, it's not a trip back. That is a definite, has to be part of it. And a swim in the sea, and then you feel better, and eat lots of prawns. Drink some Savannahs.
Come to Portugal.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's a big thing. I must say, the seafood and that kind of thing. I really miss that side of it. Food.
Yeah, no, we've got a place down the road that's a real Portuguese seafood place. It's very touristy in a way, but they do a kilo of prawns at like 49 euros.
Good grief.
But it's they're shelled and heads off and everything. It's just
sounds delicious.
Oh my word! But the Portuguese, they don't mind garlic, so you
as long as everyone's doing it, you're fine. Yeah,
have a bit of a whiff for a few days. And you mentioned all these things like savannah and the sea, and when I ask people, what do you miss most about South Africa? So a lot of those things you can get there, but you say the Kruger. What else?
It's. I think it's more a feeling than a thing, because like you say, I can buy rusks and I can buy chutney and all that kind of stuff, but it's just where you feel like yourself in a way. It's a weird thing. It's like I don't know. It's weird because if I'm walking around an island, nobody necessarily knows that I'm not Irish, but I do. So when we are back in South Africa, when we're back home, I do. It's that feeling of I'm in the place that I should be in. That's how I feel. That's where I belong. So it's a hard one. But, I think that's it. That's it. Exactly. It is that. And the warmth of the sun. The sun has warmth.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think people always talk about the warmth of the people.
Yeah, 100%.
When you arrive at the airport, it doesn't matter who it is. People are generally friendly.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have politicians who give the country such a bad name.
Know.
But the people are friendly and helpful, and
100%, Jan. I mean, you're right. You notice that immediately, as you say, from the airport. But just if you're going into Pick and Pay, or you're going into wherever Woolies or wherever, everybody, you start with hello, how are you? Where, and I know in Ireland it's not that it's a rude thing or a bad thing. It's just how it is. Where we'll be, walk along the seafront in Wicklow, and people generally greet. They go higher, and we would always be going, fine, thanks, and you, and they're already gone. They don't really know what to know. They're just being polite and saying, higher. But there isn't really a hi, how are you, or whatever. So, but that's fine. It's not like a thing. It's different. That's all. You get used to that.
Yeah. And what do you like most about living in Ireland?
Look, a lot of things work. There's still, everywhere's going to have its issues, whether it's, the bus doesn't arrive, but it's not like it's life threatening to anybody. So, I think the fact that you don't have to think about certain things in South Africa that you were always thinking about, your safety, if there's a noise at night, yes, obviously you still have to be careful in Ireland. There are still baddies out there or whatever, but, it's not an all consuming thing. So I think that's a biggie. And I think with my son growing up here, which was in a way one of our reasons, even though for him I miss a lot of things about South Africa growing up, running around barefoot, sport, that kind of thing. But for him, it's been great. He hasn't really known that, he gets up, he gets on a bus, he walks to the shop, he rides his bike, goes out at night. It's not even a thought in his mind that he might not be safe.
Yeah, that's, I guess that comes up in every conversation. When
Probably.
I speak to people in Ireland, it's the postal service. My word.
Amazing. Amazing.
They post your passport to you, isn't it?
Yes. Well, that's a big thing, I think, for South Africans. When you get here and you're doing, let's say you're applying for visas or passports and you have to send your original documentation in an envelope and you're like, you can't be serious. I can't part with this because if I have to get something replaced, it's almost impossible unless you speak to the right people to get that organized for you. So the postal service is right. I literally post a letter today and it generally, if it's not received tomorrow, I'm sort of like, oh, that wasn't really good, but the next day it'll be there, so.
And each house has its own postal code. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And that's stopped. I can't remember when that came in because before we didn't have any postal codes, but it's the typical thing. The postman knows exactly who you are, so your post could just have your name and the town on it, and you generally would probably get it.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Definitely something that we're not used to. And public transport, the other thing that is,
yes,
that's amazing.
Yeah. Look, when you're out a bit of Dublin, it can be a little bit harder, but there are still options. You've just got to work around them. That's all, definitely, yeah.
And Berilyn, obviously you guys have been there a long time, but something that always comes up in every conversation about Ireland's cost of living. It is an expensive place to live. Is that your experience as well?
Definitely. And we've been here 16 years this year. So you can definitely see, and it's almost difficult to pinpoint where it's happened or how it's happened. Where when we first arrived and the good few years in, you could pop out and get a burger and a pint or go for coffee and a scone. And it didn't really seem to impact you. When you do that now, it's a real decision because there's choices to be made, So yes, definitely. Obviously housing crisis, rent is crazy expensive. And I think that's the biggest problem is if you think a lot of people are probably paying, if not half, just a bit less than half of a person's salary to pay for a rental or whatever you're paying for. So, and I think what we do is keep it to simple pleasures, I'd much prefer to light the fire. We actually, talking about cost saving, we make our own boerewors now. So, so we light the fire, we can have some boerie rolls, or whatever we're doing. And, you work around it, but yes, definitely. And, you hear people going off to Portugal, Spain on holiday and coming back and saying, you cannot believe what I paid for a bottle of wine, that kind of thing. So, it's crazy.
Yeah. And have you, I don't know you or your husband, but my son-in-law definitely, I think he takes Guinness intravenously, but he's completely converted. I can't get that stuff into my body. Are you?
My husband, yes, definitely. He has a project besides the art that he does, started around COVID time. He makes tin arts from Guinness cans.
Oh, wow.
that's a great excuse for him to have to drink more Guinness,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. If I've ever heard one.
Yeah, but we had a few local people also helping us out with that. They would drop their empty cans at the front door in a bag for us, hang it on the door handle, and so
That's awesome. And maybe just about life there, we always
Mm.
ask about healthcare. The Irish healthcare system is good, not like the NHS.
I think when it comes to serious conditions, fabulous. But it also probably depends whereabouts you are. But I know a lot of people when they arrive battle to find a GP because you've obviously got to sign up with a GP in your area, and a lot of the time there's no space for you, so that can be a bit of a battle. Look, it's available, and yes, that if you're admitted to hospital, you're going to be looked after. And you don't necessarily have to have a medical aid.
Okay.
Because if you're being seen by a specialist, he's generally the public and the private guy that you would see either way. You might just wait a bit longer to see him if it's public. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
And maybe last question, second last question, is there anything you regret about the move? Would you have done something differently if you could?
It's an interesting one. I don't know if we would have done anything differently. I think we were flying by the seat of our pants anyway. And look, I think you do often question, did we do the right thing? Did we do the right thing for our son? So that is a question that I think a lot of people ask themselves. But I don't think we would have done much differently, no, that I can think of. Yeah.
And I mean, that was probably leading then to the last question. If somebody is in your position in South Africa with a young child or young kids and thinking, should we or should we not, what would your advice be?
I think when you're leaving, you have an idea. Let's say you've never come to Ireland before. You have an idea in your head of how it's going to be, and it's not easy. It can be very difficult. Obviously, when kids are smaller, it's easier on the kids, I think, you know what I mean, for them to adapt, generally speaking, anyway. But I think it can be difficult on relationships. And it's, and loneliness and no backup system. So you've got to make sure that when you go and you're committing to the fact that it's going to be your nucleus, and that could be like that for a good long time. So you're prepared to do that. Because I know just from Facebook groups in Ireland and that is a huge thing where people are lonely. And so you need to be sure that you are up for it and don't bring your furniture.
Don't bring the furniture.
Not bring your furniture.
Oh, I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
No, I think that's awesome advice because, as you say, you're the nucleus. It's you and your family, and you've got to make sure that one of you at least stays high, because if the one's down, the other one's got to be on, in a position where you can help each other, because it's very lonely. I think
it can be very lonely.
I always say this thing is not for sissies. Don't underestimate how difficult it is. And
one more to add to that, Jan, is with the kids. I think there's a woman I follow on TikTok. Her name is Essie, and she's relatively new in Ireland, and she makes me laugh because it's things like kids' sports. In South Africa, your kids play sport at school and they play everything and it's fabulous. You come to Ireland, you've got to join sports clubs, others, because there's not generally a lot of sport at school. And I was horrified when my son first got to primary school. He was 5 and he came home and they were all calling their teacher by her first name and there was no uniform. And I was like, what is going on? Where is the discipline? You should be marching up and down. It's a lot more relaxed in a way with the kids than we generally are used to. So that was quite, it takes a bit of getting used to.
Absolutely. No, I mean, but we're adaptable, and
Yeah, you have to be.
it's an adventure. I think
Yes,
that's
definitely.
the other side of it.
You have to look at it that way. Yeah.
Awesome. Berilyn, thank you so much. That was
It's a pleasure.
such a lacquer conversation, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I hope I didn't bore you.
No, it's so good.
Whatever.
And
but it is good to have a chat and
and reflect a bit. And I always say, if we can just help one person, we've succeeded.
Definitely.
And keep up that South African gathering.
I will.
My
Listen,
goodness.
if you're around, please give me a shout and pop in.
Trust me, I will. I'm definitely coming in August, so I will give you a shout. For sure.
That'll be good. Yeah,
absolutely.
We won't have a pint of Guinness together. We'll have something else.
I'm a Kilkenny man,
cool. Okay.
And I love Smithwick, so
all right. Okay, that's good. It's a date.
Absolutely. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And to the listeners, if you want to share this episode or if it resonated with you, please do so and follow us on your favorite podcast platform or look at our website, relocatedSouthAfrican.com. Until next time.
This episode is brought to you by Sable International, building futures beyond borders.